Okay. I think it's recording now. And we will get started. So hi, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today and welcome. I'm Lily Jane Yan, Senior City Planner with Community Planning and Development. Before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone who's joining us, and if anybody needs a Spanish translation, you can do so by selecting the language portion on your screen. And our translator here today is Johnny Romero. Johnny, do you want to say that in Spanish for everyone? So
I'm not sure.
Yes.
I'm not sure if he can unmute himself.
Oh, I heard him.
Oh, there we go.
So for those of you who are don't need Spanish translations, you might want to select English as your preferred language, which is, I think there's like a world icon at the bottom. And if you hit that, and then when a Spanish translator speaks, or anybody from the audience will speak in Spanish, you'll be able to hear the translations come through into English or vice versa. So, okay. So very quickly, some of you, if you're joining from the community, you might recognize me as I was heavily involved in the development of the recently adopted Far Northeast Area Plan, and I'm excited to be back here with all of you today to bring the proposed amendments to the 2019 adopted plan. But before we get started, I'd like to welcome Councilwoman Stacey Gilmore. And I'm going to ask you, Stacey, to kick off this public meeting.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you, Lily. I'm Councilwoman Stacey Gilmore. I represent District 11. And thank you for joining the first Far Northeast Area Plan Amendment Community Meeting. And this is going to be, you know, we worked together as community for a little over 18 months around the community planning process. And the Far Northeast Area Plan was adopted in June of 2019. And the area plan sets recommendations for equitable neighborhoods and communities, and it addresses our land use and mobility, quality of life, and economic development. And as with planned growth, change is expected to occur in the area plan, especially in greenfield areas that are underdeveloped. And this change activates the need for a focused plan amendment, such as the Far Northeast Area Plan with the planned relocation of Pepsi Co. at 72nd and Tower Road, which you all will learn more about today. And I just want to thank you for your time and for being here. And I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Lily. She's a senior city planner and has been heavily involved in the Far Northeast Area Plan the first go around, and she's now leading the amendment effort. And I want to also recognize Melissa Sotelo from my council office is here as well. And so thank you to the planning staff and the community members who are joining us this evening.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gilmore. And I've just shared my screen. Can everybody see what I'm sharing? Great. So I just want to remind everyone again today that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted later on the project website for viewing. So we do have a short agenda for you guys today. I'm going to start the meeting off by talking about why we're proposing an amendment to the 2019 Far Northeast Area Plan, what exactly will be amended, and lastly, we'll review the timeline for planning process and next steps. I will then invite Pepsi Bottling Company to give a quick presentation on their vision and proposal for Far Northeast. And finally, we will open up the floor to take your questions and comments. So with that, I'm going to get started. So Firstly, as Councilwoman Gilmer mentioned, I'd like to acknowledge that we have a really great area plan that was adopted in 2019 that covers Montbello, Green Valley Ranch, and DIA neighborhoods. And development of this plan went through an extensive 18-month public planning process to establish a community-driven vision. And the plan sets really great guidance that will continue to shape the future of our Northeast for the next 18 years. In the plan, we address growth strategies, and through your input and guidance, the plan identified appropriate areas for future development. This community told us that the most appropriate level of change and development was at existing undeveloped greenfield sites. So together, you identified appropriate place types that clearly marked areas to preserve, such as open space and single unit residential neighborhoods. But you also identified areas for new development and the type of development that may be appropriate and how new development should be sensitive in height and setbacks to adjacent communities. Your input also advised the city on which streets to prioritize for different modes of movement, like prioritizing ped and bike connections across 56th Avenue. And you also told us how much you value your existing parks and recreational facilities, and you're guided the plan to identify open space and trail networks. While there's so much great guidance in this plan, a new manufacturing area is proposed for the DIA neighborhood, which has instigated need for some minor revisions in this highlighted part of DIA. I do want to acknowledge that plan amendments are quite common. It doesn't make existing plan obsolete, it just adds to them with new recommendations. In 2018, I led a downtown area plan amendment where we addressed a focus area within the downtown area plan and revised recommendations that supported a new vision for Central Platte Valley area. So you may already be aware that Pepsi has a large bottling plant in Denver, and they're outgrown their existing facility at National Western with no room to expand. And their current plan is located, is looking to relocate to the DIA neighborhood in the far northeast area, just east of Tower and south of 72nd. The DIA neighborhood has a small but growing residential community, but it's predominantly, the type of patterns that we see here is hotel development. And of course, we also have Panasonic here as well, right next to 61st and Pena light rail stop. You may be aware that residential is actually limited in the DIA neighborhood, and that's because there's a Denver International Airport overlay that allows for multi-unit residential only between 56th and 64th, and doesn't allow any residential north of 64th. In the 2019 Far Northeast Area Plan, recommended that the City Department of Economic Development work with the community to bring commercial and employment sector to the Far Northeast area. And the plan also set a goal to establish new districts through market-driven growth. So with those plan recommendations in mind, the city has worked closely with Pepsi to search for a new home for the Pepsi bottling plant that will allow Pepsi to grow in the next 50 years and retain those jobs in Denver. So in 2019, Far Northeast residents identified existing high-profile employers such as Den and Panasonic as key assets to build upon or follow suit with similar development as a strategy for attracting jobs. Since the DIA neighborhood scored low on jobs, the plan recommended that vast amount of these underdeveloped lands in this area presents a great opportunity to attract employment sectors to the Far Northeast. So Pepsi aims to employ around 500 workers at this facility. And I should point out that the white dashed line that has been appearing on all these maps is the proposed site for Pepsi bottling company to relocate. And the amendments that we're talking about this evening will be limited to this area only. Now, as I mentioned, the already existing Far Northeast Area Plan projected a long-term vision for the DIA, and specifically in this area, much of that vision was based on the projected light rail stop that would be developed at the intersection of 72nd and Himalaya. But since the adoption of this plan, we've learned that there are no immediate plans to develop the stop. And in fact, there's no plan to develop this light rail stop in the next 20 years. And because we still need to promote job creation in this area, This plan amendment gives us a new opportunity to reimagine what this area should be. But any changes that we make to the type of uses we would see here would impact mobility and navigational needs in this area as well. And if Pepsi bottling company is relocating here, they would need to apply for a rezoning. Currently, this area has a variety of commercial mixed-use zones, which don't allow for light industrial or manufacturing. And the proposed zone district would be an IMX zone, which is an industrial mixed use with an 8-story height limit. We've also reached out to our neighbors at the Denver International Airport, and our understanding is that closer to Highway 470, where we have demarcated as number 1 here, DEN plans for a mixed-use development. The area that's demarcated as number 2, which is directly across from the proposed bottling plant, is identified as light industrial and manufacturing, which is very similar to the use that Pepsi would house here. And lastly, the area number 3 here is being proposed as a research and development campus. We're also working with a marketing consultant that was engaged in the development of the existing Far Northeast area plan to help us understand how light industrial and manufacturing markets and are performing in this area. So we also want to understand what is anticipated demand for new development in this part of the AA and what concentrations of industries are expected here. So any anticipated modifications in this amendment will include updates to the future places. And as I've already mentioned, these were previously projected to be mixed use. And in order to accommodate light industrial, this map will need to be updated in the focus area to become an innovation flex district. And as I previously mentioned already, any changes to place types will impact that block pattern. And so you can anticipate seeing road networks modification specifically in this area. And so lastly, I want to talk about the process and timeline. We're planning to have a steering committee meeting in late January. And so I'm going to put a link later in the chat with our website. So those meetings are open to the public and you're welcome to join us. In late January, we're also anticipating putting out a draft for your review. Now, any modification to the maps or text in this draft will be shown in red so you can clearly see what is being amended. We anticipate that we will hold a second public meeting in February, and this will be an opportunity for us to review all proposed changes and hear your feedback. So once we've collected your input, we will then finalize the draft and present it to Planning Board, and that's projected to be sometime in March of 2022, which will then be followed by a City Council adoption in late March or early April. We'd love for all of you to continue to be engaged. And again, I'll put our website link in the chat box, and it's www.denvergov.org/Far Northeast Plan. And then I'll also put my email in the chat as well, and you're welcome to reach out to me after this meeting. And with that, I'm going to ask Pepsi team, Brian or Kathy, to present. Brian, Kathy, do you want me to share my screen, or do you want to share your own screen?
I'm happy to share my screen, Lily.
Okay, I hope you have that capability.
I do.
Okay, great.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Connolly. I'm a land use planner and lawyer with the firm of Otten Johnson here in Denver. And I have the privilege of being here this evening representing PepsiCo and Pepsi Bottling, which is the subsidiary entity of Pepsi that's going to be working on this exciting project. I first want to say thank you to Lily for organizing this meeting and for all of her good work on the Far Northeast Area Plan Amendment. And also say thank you to Councilwoman Gilmore for her great introduction and for serving as a co-host of this event and the community conversation around this. I'm joined this evening, or I guess I'll start out by saying, one of the reasons that we're here is PepsiCo, through its operating division, Pepsi Beverages North America, is looking to construct a new bottling facility, as Lily mentioned, in the High Point area, near 64th in Dunkirk or 72nd and Tower, in the large property that Lily showed. And where we are in the process is we've completed Denver's large development review process, which has been used to guide this process, it's told us that we needed to go through the Far Northeast Area Plan Amendment, and is guiding other processes that we're going to continue to go through as Pepsi plans and then eventually constructs its proposed facility. And so what we're looking to do here is really introduce you to the company and to the plans, and answer any questions that you have about our planning effort as we're progressing. I'm joined this evening by Kathy Alfano, who is the Senior Director of Economic Development for Pepsi. She'll be giving a good portion of this presentation. And also joining us this evening are Steve Lawrence, who's the Vice President of Engineering. He's responsible for a lot of the site planning efforts for the bottling plant. And Martin Wallace, who's the Director of Real Estate, who is also involved with the planning efforts for the plant. Unfortunately, Lupe de la Cruz, who is the Director of Government Affairs, and Claude Owens, who also works in economic development, were unable to join us this evening, but they're integral parts of the team as well. And the team that's assembled this evening will certainly be able to answer any questions that you have. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy to give an introduction to PepsiCo.
Oh, thank you, Brian. So as you probably are all aware, that PepsiCo is one of the world's largest food and beverage companies. And in addition to being one of the largest companies, we are also a highly respected employer and corporate citizen. And by the awards you can see on the slide, you can see that we are recognized by third parties as being among the world's most ethical and admired companies, as well as a leader in diversity and environmental responsibility. And if anybody notices, these dates are 2020. We also received these awards in 2021 and then some as well. And the next few slides will really take you through some of our accomplishments. So we have a commitment to diversity at PepsiCo. And one of the ways that we put people first is to foster a workplace where culture embraces diversity and inclusivity. PepsiCo offers a variety of affinity and support groups that are accessible to all employees. The purpose of many of these groups is to create an inclusive culture. PepsiCo demonstrates its diversity in its hiring practice and throughout its involvement with various local organizations. With the development of the High Point project, we continue to hire a diverse workforce, just like our current Brighton Boulevard facility, where 52% of the workforce are people of color. Sustainability is also one of PepsiCo's key priorities, and the High Point project offers us an opportunity to create a beverage manufacturing plant that incorporates many of the latest technologies and sustainability practices. PepsiCo is committed to a broad sustainability strategy, where the company is implementing changes across its end-to-end value chain to build a more sustainable food system and reduce environmental impact in all aspects of our business. From our product sourcing to how key ingredients are grown, to the amount and source of water used in production, to make our packaging more recyclable. With the implementation of new energy-saving technology from the start, our planned facility at High Point will set an international example for what it means to be a sustainable manufacturer. All of our strategies are within the focus to reduce, all our sustainability strategies are within the focus to reduce absolute greenhouse gas and emissions by 40%, no, not by 40%, by achieve zero emissions by 2040, and to reduce absolute greenhouse gas emissions by 75% by 2030. So this is really to give you the footprint of what PepsiCo is in the state of Colorado and in Denver. And so we have a long history here. Together, we employ over 2,000 employees in the state, with 1,400 right in the metro area of Denver, with half of them at Frito facilities and half at Pepsi facilities. We are very proud of our community outreach, and throughout many decades, we have been proudly an active member of the community. We engage in a wide variety of organizations that support all members of the Denver community. As part of our COVID relief efforts, we supported food and beverages to members of the community. With the expanded base of employees in Denver with this new location, we are excited to continue and enhance our volunteer efforts and community involvement. I give this to you now, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
welcome.
We wanted to just wrap up by highlighting some of the community benefits that the project will offer. First and foremost, it's going to add many new good paying jobs to Denver and to the local community in the far northeast area. PepsiCo is committed to hiring from and within the local community, and we're committed to a diverse workforce. We anticipate that the project will offer many opportunities for area residents' employment. The facility will be a national and even international model of sustainability for beverage manufacturing, and employees of the facility and PepsiCo are anticipated to patronize surrounding businesses and help to grow the business community in far northeast Denver. The facility will be relatively low impact, producing less traffic than comparably sized commercial or office uses that might have otherwise developed on the property. And with the commitment to people and the planet and the city, Pepsi is dedicated to being a good neighbor and a partner in the community. So with that, Lily, I think that concludes our presentation. We do have a project email address, highpointdenverproject@gmail.com. So if you email that, we'll be happy to answer questions or continue the communication after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm just reading some of the chats that are coming through. And then if anybody also wants to speak up, they're welcome to raise their hand and I will call them out. So the first question that I'm reading in the chat is, what amenities have developers of that area promised new and proposed homeowners? Since the area was planned for mixed-use development, this new project seems to be completely out of line with what the community cited in the NPI planning process. And so I'm going to share my screen one more time so I can talk to the map in this area. So, and I apologize, I'm looking to my bigger screen that shows this. But the plan, as I mentioned in my presentation, very much of this area, the development that we put together wasn't necessarily through the input that we received from the development community. It was predominantly based on what we thought was going to be a transit-oriented development in this area, because we thought there was going to be a light rail stop coming here. So in our recent conversations with RTD, we understand that that is no longer in the works, or it's really, if that is projected, it's beyond the vision of this plan and beyond the 20-year trajectory of this plan. So in that case, this is what we're doing here today is, if there's no light rail stop here, then we need to reimagine what this area is going to be. Meanwhile, we still need to promote some of the direction of the plan, which was predominantly about job creation, which we think this will achieve. Likewise, if I'm sorry to scroll through the slides really quickly, but I just want to get to the plans that are put forward by Den. The development that they're anticipating directly across 72nd and the light rail stop is going to be the same type of use and typology. So we do feel that this type of land use and this type of use and the kind of the projected traffic movements around this would be appropriate in this area. So I'm going to stop sharing because I have a hard time seeing the chat. There we go. With that one, I'm not sharing. There's another question. I'm going to try to tackle the first questions in the chat, and then if you can raise your hands, and I will get to you as well. So the proposed land sites the company is proposing to develop would significantly reduce the options that can be built in the area. How can or will Pepsi Company offset the loss of community amenities? Brian, do you want to talk about some of the community benefits you guys are working on?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. It's a good question. So the current general development plan for the area shows community amenities such as a public park space. It shows the development of a trail corridor along the Second Creek and an associated park corridor with that as well. It calls for a recreation center on the south side of High Point Boulevard. And it also calls for the development of infrastructure in the area. So none of those things are changing with this project. First and foremost, the park and green space along the Second Creek will be built in connection with this project. There will be a trail along Second Creek. The park space that was intended to be located in the middle of the property will now be located adjacent to the Second Creek. So we'll create actually a bigger, more continuous park space along Second Creek. The community rec center that is being constructed actually right now south of High Point Boulevard. As part of this project, Pepsi will pay money into the Metro District out there and will support the development of that rec center. And in addition to that, Pepsi is committed to building streets and pedestrian infrastructure around the property. So all of those community amenities that were planned as part of this property in the past will remain part of it.
Thank you, Brian. And I just want to add, and if I have colleagues on the call as well, so if there's anybody that wants to jump in and respond to any of the questions, feel free to do that. As Brian mentioned earlier, there's the LDR process, and through that process, we're also working with PepsiCo to expand the Second Creek. As Brian mentioned, we're working to identify construction of roadways and bridges here as well. So there's other aspects that are, the other benefits are coming through this development. Okay, so I'm going to read the next question. What will the impact be on the local roads? It's already difficult to get in and out of Montbello, especially on Pena Boulevard. I'm wondering if anybody from Ability Team is on the call. But Brian, do you guys, or maybe somebody from your team, do you guys have a strategy on how your vehicles are going to be moving in and out of the facility?
Yes, we do. And it's a continued work in progress as we go through the various processes that are necessary in order to build this plant. The current plan for truck traffic is to route truck traffic west out of the property along 71st Avenue, up Tower Road, and then onto Pena Boulevard and onto the highway system, so that truck traffic from the facility does not impact the local community. As part of that, Pepsi is going to construct its own entrance into the facility off of 71st Avenue. And in addition, we will continue to work with Dottie and other agencies on that truck routing plan to make sure that it is not impacting the community in a negative way.
Thank you, Brian. This is a great question, and one that I may not have an answer to, but will PepsiCo invest financially in the development of affordable housing? With the cost of living and the need for housing, PepsiCo will need to support the housing needs in the area. So I think it's a great point. I'm not aware of the discussions of Pepsi supporting housing. I think we're looking at Pepsi as a significant employment sector that's going to facilitate jobs and provide jobs in the community. 500 jobs I mentioned earlier, but those conversations about housing have not been part of the conversation as of yet. And again, if there's anybody else from city staff that wants to take on any of the questions, feel free to jump in.
Lily, I would just add on the question about affordable housing that it's kind of early in the process. We haven't discussed specifically about anything about affordable housing, but a big piece of housing affordability is wages, and a problem that we've seen in Denver in recent years is that wages have not kept up with the growth in the cost of housing. And so by bringing this project to the far Northeast and employing hundreds of new employees at, we didn't have this in the presentation, but the average pay is anticipated to be approximately $75,000, including benefits, and which is well above the average wage in the far Northeast. We think that we're helping to address some of the housing affordability issues by bringing good jobs to Denver and giving people job opportunities so that they can afford housing in the area.
And with that, I don't have any more questions in the chat, but if if anybody else wants to raise their hands and ask questions, you're welcome to do so. And I'll, if you're haven't been promoted to speak, I will promote you to speak. There's a question that just came through that says, how many jobs will be entry level and what are the starting wage? What is the starting wage?
Kathy, do you want to answer that question?
Yes, I actually have to go back to my notes. How many will be entry level? Okay, so we did have what the average wage is. I actually apologize. If I could just look for that and then I will get right back to you. Yes.
No
Lily,
problem.
we
Yes.
do have some folks in the chat feature. We have the Q&A feature, and then there's the chat feature that has the
Okay.
additional comments.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So there was a question in the chat feature that I can answer. It was about, will we work with the local workforce? Did you see that one, Lily?
I haven't, but go ahead and answer that one.
Okay, so someone asked if we would work with the local workforce. And what I wanted to share with you is absolutely, right? So PepsiCo has a website, pepsicojobs.com, where we list all our jobs. And because we have businesses right there in Metro Denver, we already do partner with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and other organizations, veterans organizations, and have career fairs. And we actually work with local schools, and some of the schools are Lincoln Tech, University of Colorado at Boulder, and we recently added the Community College of Denver. And really, it is in our best interest to work with most schools to help recruit employees.
And Lily, this is Deborah from Dito, if I can jump in on that
Yes.
question as well. You know, Pepsi already has been listing their job openings on the Connecting Colorado platform as well. And they're very well aware of our Workforce Development Center in Montbello, and, you know, have indicated their interest in partnering with us to, you know, promote job openings as they become available. You know, first and foremost, you know, the priority is retaining the jobs that we have in Pepsi, and there will be a significant amount of upskilling for the existing jobs that are relocated into this new facility, for the employees that already are working there today as they install new manufacturing equipment that's state of the art. So there'll be both upskilling of the existing employees and then hiring new employees as well.
Oh,
Thank you,
and
Deborah.
I do have the answer now, Lily, on the
Okay.
jobs and what is
Okay.
their composition. Okay, so I apologize, I didn't know this right away. I should know it because it's usually very much the same. So out of all the jobs, about 90%, we call them frontline jobs. And an example of some of these are like 40% would be production workers. Maintenance mechanics are about 10%. They are degreed and have high wages. There's loaders and transportation people and fleet people. And like if you go through the production worker, we actually train them to go from, you know, being a non-skilled worker to being a semi-skilled worker. And then the rate of pay, as Brian mentioned, it's $75 with benefits. So benefits are about $15,000. The average wage is about $60,000. I would say the starting wage is probably no lower than $40,000 for entry-level positions, but it's skewed more towards the 50 and the 60.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay,
So
you're welcome.
I see another question that came in the chat, but I think it's a duplicate question from the that's coming through the questions and answers. So I'll just read this. How can the company support the use of public transportation so that there's less of a need to drive? Where are current employees coming from?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So a few things. Number one, even though what Lily said is true about the 72nd and Himalaya station being rather far out in RTD's planning efforts, as part of our site planning efforts, Pepsi is going to ensure that there is land available around the 72nd and Himalaya station the future 72nd Himalaya station in the event that station does get moved up in the development process, because Pepsi would like to have the opportunity for employees to take public transit to access the new facility. Separately, we have been talking to the city about a potential option where we have a shuttle service or something like that to the existing 64th and Pena. I can't remember the exact what the cross is.
61st and Pena.
Yeah, that light rail station or commuter rail station. So we're looking at that option as well. And as far as the question of where current employees are commuting from, we have that data. And Kathy, I don't know if you have that right at hand, but I think actually many are commuting from Adams County or northeastern Denver to the current plant on Brighton Boulevard.
Yes, so I have what the full composition was at the Brighton Boulevard facility, and it was a high percentage at Adams County balanced with Denver County, but then we also had the other county that was large was Jefferson County and Arapahoe County. So there are several counties that employees commute from.
I just want to acknowledge that these are really great questions that are coming through. And while we may not have them sort of the most perfect response right now, I think these are opportunities. You guys are providing seed ideas for us and how to incorporate some of these recommendations into the plan amendment also. So thank you for the ones that are coming in. Will this center block the Gaylord Resort view?
No.
No, it will not block the Gaylord's view. We've actually been in conversations with the Gaylord to ensure that we're not going to block their view.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go back to the chat, and there's a question from Kira Jackson. Do you have detailed outline of your sustainability plans that we can review?
Kathy, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. To the extent there's a sustainability plan for this property, I'm not sure we've developed one yet. Is that correct?
So Steve, I think he can speak on this call. Can Steve speak?
He can, yes.
Okay, Steve can share that they're definitely, the whole plan is in development, and I'll let him share.
So say again what the question is?
The question is, do you have detailed outline of your sustainability plans that we can view? And perhaps this is not even specific to the design of this building. It's just the kind of the sustainability model that Pepsi is striving for.
Yes.
So I don't want to put additional words into Kira's mouth, but is there a general approach that Pepsi balloting plants are, kind of converting to or modifying themselves to that could be shared with the public?
Yeah, so speaking generally, this will be the most advanced plant we have built in North America. It'll also be the largest plant we've ever built in North America. We're certainly going from a water recovery standpoint, going to extensive. We use reverse osmosis for processing. I don't want to get into the weeds, but we're going to do everything we can to recover 100% water recovery. In fact, we will recover 100% water recovery. We plan on being solar efficient. Denver obviously has a lot of what do you have 200 days 300 days of sunshine other than the snow, and we're going to take advantage of that. we're gonna take advantage of everything. So it will be state of the art.
And Kira, I just promoted you to speak. So if you have an additional question, I think you were trying to clarify.
Okay, can you get, okay, you guys can hear me. Cool. So I specifically, that's helpful to know, but if you guys are talking about this going to be, you know, state of the art across the world, one of the most sustainable plants that you guys have built, I'd like to see a detailed list of what that actually means. And so if you're going to be cutting down emissions by 75% by 2040, that's cool. How are you going to do that? And then what are some other practices that you're going to implement within this plant specifically, just to reduce, I guess, your impact within this area environmentally?
So we would not be able to give you that level of detail today, but we can assure you that we can give you that.
Wait, so you don't have it yet?
Say again?
You don't have the plan yet?
Oh no, obviously we have a plan. However, you're asking for specifics. I would not be able to give you specifics.
And Steve, I think, I mean, to answer the question, I mean, in terms of reducing greenhouse gases, you're planning to put solar, to use solar to power this plant. And I know that's obviously would be this most significant reduction in greenhouse gases, as well as potential electrification of your truck fleet in the future, right?
That's correct. I mean, we just opened a new warehouse in Pecos, and we're looking to electrify that fleet. We're electrifying fleets in California. I mean, that is our intention.
So if I could just add, so we have something, if you wanted to look on our website, called PepsiCo Positive, and we can send you that information where it goes very deep on how we're very being sustainable. But like 2 examples that I've actually am part of the project is we're taking our whole California Modesto plant that has almost 800 employees, 0 emissions. So every vehicle is either electric or compressed natural gas, which is near 0 emissions, forklifts, yard tractors. And so that's an example of, we've been doing that. We're just, you know, and what we're trying to do is then scale that to our other plants. And given that this will be such a significant, you know, gem in our portfolio, we would want to use that there. We have another facility where we basically took it off the grid with solar, water recycling, and boilers. And so, yeah, if we can share with you information, if you want to give us your email address. And I know that we're using all of those things that we do to kind of design this building, but it hasn't been completely, the sustainability part hasn't been completely completed.
Yeah, I'll share my email for sure. I'd love to dive into that. And then also like plastic reduction as well. What are your guys' plans for that? I know that we live right next to the landfill, just on the other side of Pena, but I'd like to see a significant reduction in that, especially since that's going to be our neighborhood that'll be impacted.
So we have very good standards in that I can't quote right now, but I will send that to you. I'm gonna write down your email address, and we will send you that, because we do use recycled plastic. Okay, Kira Jackson. Okay, and I will send you some of that information. Okay, if that's okay with everybody else.
Yeah, and the facility is going to come up. Everything in the plant is going to be electric, as far as AGVs, lithium-ion batteries.
Right.
I mean, it is going to be as good as you can from a greenhouse standpoint. If you're looking at that, with recyclability, as Kathy mentioned, the reality now is, and we want to be 100% recyclable. Our PET is hard to come by. We're getting as much as is available, and certainly we're part of leading that opportunity.
Thank you, guys. There's another. Oh, Kira, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have another question?
No. Oh, no.
Okay, thank you. There's another question that's come through. Is there a commitment to partner with local community groups to give back?
Okay,
And then I'll go
so,
to Ann White.
okay, so I can answer that. Okay, so PepsiCo, being part of the community is really important to PepsiCo. And so what I can share with you is all the different affiliations that we've had up to this point. And so we've had PepsiCo Food for Good, where we provide meals, and we've provided 114,000 meals and 385,000 beverages to residents of Denver, along with grants to assist family with groceries. We engage with a variety of organizations to really bring this community engagement. And we anticipate, once we have employees there, which would be like about 2024, we would be doing the same. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. We're part of the American Red Cross, the United Way, the Salvation Army. There's just so many. We probably have 20 different organizations that people participate in. It's very important to us at PepsiCo to give back and be part of the community.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm gonna, Ann White, Ms. Ann, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I wanted to go back to your outreach on diversity. You mentioned your outreach to several organizations and how you outreach, but I noticed there was a lack of outreach to other chambers, such as the Black Chamber, the Asian Chamber. What is PepsiCo going to do in order to reach out to other diverse chambers here in order to promote your hiring?
So if I am not the HR person, but I do know the different chambers that we do reach out to. We can add these other chambers. I am working with Deborah Cameron, who's on this call, and she can help us make sure that we've incorporated all the right resources, because it's in our best interest. What we say at PepsiCo, we want the best diverse pipeline, right, of employees. And so it's in our best interest to do that. So I'm sure Deborah knows the right chambers, and I can absolutely introduce them to our HR people when we're hiring, and include them in job fairs and job postings.
Well, I guess I asked the question because obviously you've been working with other chambers, and Pepsi has been around in this community for a long time. I retired from workforce and I worked with you guys for years, and I just found it interesting. You only mentioned one Pacific, but you did not include the others. And, for diversity, you need to outreach to, all the other chambers and other organizations that, work with workforce and have a diverse workforce. So that was the reason I asked the question.
I understand. Working with workforce is really the best way to go. And so maybe when I just listed the ones, it was because I wasn't aware that we reach out to the others. So I'm not saying that we don't reach out to the others. I just don't have that information. So, but I will write that down as a note and kind of mention it to our HR people, and then work with Deborah to, incorporate that.
And follow up, to the community regarding the outreach would be great too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and can I suggest that, and I think that's a great idea, and maybe Councilwoman Gilmore, what we could do is in the next 2 weeks facilitate a meeting between ourselves and PepsiCo, and with some steering committee members engaged as well, and really address like that community engagement piece and how we're going to move forward with that.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So I'll give it another minute or two, see if anybody else, feel free to raise your hands, or put a note in the chat, or in the Q&A. I'm trying to watch out for all.
Lily, I would also just add, as we leave the topic of hiring, hiring for this facility is not intended to begin until 2023, so it's still quite a ways off. And so any feedback that the community has about, ways to approach hiring, we're happy to continue to take in and consider.
Great, thank you, Brian. And there's a message from Mira. There's a list of local organizations that you should prioritize with partnering, and agree. And we hope to facilitate that meeting in the next couple of weeks, and so that we could begin to organize, identify them and set up relationships between PepsiCo and those organizations. And then she's also saying it would be great to establish a philanthropic commitment with local organizations as well. Well, great. I don't see any other comments coming in. With that, I think,
Lily,
yeah.
we do have one more question.
You do? Okay, great.
In the Q&A.
Thank you. Are there other areas you've identified for this plant?
All I'll say is Pepsi undertook a very long search to find this particular parcel property, and this is certainly the one that the company landed on. It works best for this use, and the company wants to remain in Denver.
Okay. I'm by no means want to rush to close this meeting, but I just want to make sure that we're not sitting here in silence. I'm happy to take on more questions if you have them. We'll give it another minute. Okay, well, I don't see any questions coming in. So thank you, everybody. This recording.
Lily, we do have another
We do.
question
Okay.
about a community benefits agreement. It's in the chat.
Is there a commitment to creating community? There must be a delay of me getting these. Is there a commitment to creating community benefits agreement? It's a great question, and that's if there's a community benefits agreement, that's going to be through an LDR process, I assume. And I am not I'm not engaged in that conversation. So Pepsi, if you guys know, Brian, if you have an answer to that, feel free to take that on. Otherwise, I don't know who else we have here on the call from the city that might be able to answer that question.
All I'll say is the LDR process did identify the possibility of doing a development agreement. And beyond that, we haven't gotten that far.
Mm-hmm. Mira, are you saying that I know other local businesses have established ones? Is that, you mean community benefits agreement? Is that what you're speaking to? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, folks. Yeah, so I know that Save a Lot, one of the local grocery stores here in the far Northeast, has a community benefits agreement. I think that's what it's called. And so just wondering if there's any interest to have a more intentional partnership with the local community.
Mm-hmm. Those are great. We will, again, and I'm sorry to say this is not within my expertise in what I do, and it will not be part of the Far Northeast Area Plan Amendment, but it certainly is something that we will relay to my colleagues that are part of the large development review. I think here I see your comment about native roots. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. Maybe a third time's the charm. Thank you everyone again for joining. And as I mentioned, this will be available, probably the soonest will be Monday on our website. And please do check back with our website to learn more about next steps, the steering committee meetings, which will be put on there as well with a link to register for that and to observe that meeting. And then the public meeting, which we'll probably announce sometime in January for February.
Great, and thank you so much, Lily, and the development team that's joined us here today. And would just ask that if there's additional information, especially with the sustainability plan and transportation mitigation to more sustainable modes, etc., any additional info, definitely if we could get it to Lily, and then maybe Lily can get it to the council office, and we'll make sure and share it out. We'll probably end up, I'm assuming, doing a follow-up email to this meeting, Lily, to get people the info, just so that we can make sure that the entire community has access to that information. And appreciate everybody's questions. I'm listening and learning alongside with you, because ultimately, if this moves forward and it needs to be rezoned, I will, on council sits as a quasi judicial board at that point for the rezoning. And so I need to stay neutral in this process. And so just appreciate the time to hear everybody's questions and the answers to learn a little bit more about this project. And so thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
everybody.
Hey, have a good night. Thanks.
Bye-bye.